making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome. This is the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Alrik Purcell, the founding host of the podcast, and I'm a sci-fi horror filmmaker. And my first feature film, The Alternate, will be coming out to the masses on September 13th.
Yay! I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer. I've made 2 features, Bread and Butter and Speed of Life, and I'm in development on a smattering of others. I'm a distribution consultant who does sales, and I used to manage Sundance's creative distribution initiative. This week, we welcome filmmaker Christopher Coppola on the show to talk about what it's like to be a Southern California Coppola. And we also talk with him about making genre films for 20 years and the different ways his movies have been funded. After that, we have an article from Deadline featuring director James Gray's take on big budget movies and why studios should be willing to lose money on their art house divisions. But before we get into that, Alrik, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been interesting. Like this last week, I've had a lot more time than I did in the previous 3 weeks. And so, I feel like, I'll get so much done. I'll write all these things and all this stuff will happen. But it's like you just get sucked up with work. You get sucked up with family stuff and you just get sucked up with life things. Like I've got to pay this bill I forgot about, or, my car needs to be fixed. I've got to find this part and order it and get it shipped to me. It's stupid stuff like that. Although, so I haven't really been working on the script I want to be working on. Although I am reading a script. I'm a part of this thing for the, what's it called? The good old friends of ours, the ISA. Ooh. I'm reading a script and giving a call as a prize for somebody who won a contest. Aww. For a genre script thing. So I'm reading this script and it's been really interesting. And the script is very much nothing I've read before and pretty much not the kind of movie that I would make myself, but very interesting. And it's I have a lot to say to this person and, I'm really interested to have the conversation, which should be happening in a couple weeks. But yeah, I have this movie that I want to write and it's just I think about it every day. I'm I have all these ideas. I'm really excited about it. And then there's no time for it. I'm okay, I can barely get my walks in this last week. I've been walking. Usually I go on hikes, and on trails near me, 5-10 minute drive away. But last couple of days, I've just been walking in my neighborhood, just taking my daughter, throwing her on my back and just walking around the streets, waving at neighbors, which is better than nothing. I'll take it. Last thing going on with me, I just started watching a new show. I'm actually watching a lot of new shows, but the one that really stood out to me, I just started last night. It's called We Own This City. Have you heard of this thing?
No.
It's from the Wire creator or creators. And it stars John Barenthal as a Boston police cop who is not necessarily the good cop he thinks he is or says he is. So it's all about this internal investigation to the Boston police force and this terrible behavior that these cops are, exhibiting. So very interesting stuff. Very cool. Well, anyways, how are things going with you?
That's a dream television show, actually. It's from David Simon or other people from the Wire.
David Simon
and John Bernthal. That sounds really, really ideal. Actually, I'm gonna have to put that on the list. We went home for one day and came back, and in the space of the 2 very long car rides, I talked with Sean about the horror feature that I'm writing with Amy Taylor, and it kind of got unraveled. I've been talking about this lately where I've been talking about how the foundation of that film feels shakier than it should and questioning, what are we really writing? What's the point? And what's the goal of the story? And what are we trying to say? Asking ourselves all these important questions. And I've been feeling really the story and the script and the project itself has been unraveling to the degree that I was about to jump ship. And then I talked to Amy this morning and she's like, no, what you're feeling is really normal. It's so normal. We still can solve these problems. It just made me feel 10 times better. So I'm just thinking about what you said about how you not having time to write is you didn't say it, but is kind of making you sad. And I feel like me not being able to get to the core of the film I want to make is making me sad. And it's really interesting how these story problems or our ability to work on our projects can really impact our day. So I'm just thinking about that and how we're both going through that right now.
Yeah. Finding the good core of a story is hard, because I think that's what needs to survive beyond everything. And there's definitely times when I was writing my last movie where like I didn't know if the core was good enough, you know, where you're like, is this worth it? Like, does this make sense? And then like you kind of have to strip away like the things that aren't working in order to know, like, is the core good, you know? And I think it took me like probably 2 or 3 years to figure out that the core was good. And then it was like, okay, well then I'm not going to give up on this. I'm going to keep working on it and spend more and more time on it, you know? But I feel that it definitely can relate to that moment where you're working on something and then it starts to unravel and you're like, does this make any sense anymore? You know? And then what I ended up was like, oh, well, the story still makes sense, but like this tangent, this other wrapping for the story that you thought was so genius and so cool and was going to really set it apart and make it so amazing. Well, that was the problem, not the core of the story. So like get back to the core of what you're writing.
That's the exact word, is tangent. That's like the perfect, we have too many tangents. And I think there's something to be said for the expression, if you're going through hell, keep going. And like whatever, writing a script, I'm not going through hell. Things are not that bad. But Amy was really, really smart in saying, like, we have to just power through and then we can fix it. But don't abandon it right now. And then she started talking about all these people who get scared off by the process that we're in, just like you did last week, Alrik, and they give up on their film and then they never write it. And so, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep writing. And then it sounds like just around the corner for you is going to be some time for you to write as well, right? And then
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it's just like the first week of a project's always the hardest. And, you know, I think once this gets up and rolling, it'll be pretty easy. So, yeah, I think there's definitely time, you know. And no updates on my movie project. Just friendly reminders that it's, you know, that things are still happening and that we'll know soon. You know, that's what I've been hearing. So we'll see. But I'm gonna poke them again today, see what they say.
Poke. Tuesday's a good poking day. Monday's always really intimidating for a poke.
Can't poke on a Monday. Mondays are bad poking days.
But Tuesdays are forgivable and encouraged.
Yeah.
What we also want to poke you about is to donate to our Patreon. So if you head to www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast, it's where that you, our listener, our friends, our family can support our show directly and keep us going. Honestly, $1 is really, really meaningful. It sounds very silly, but $1 is $1 a month. That's $12 a year. That's $12 that Alrik's not paying for the show. That's $12 that goes to our editor. That's $12 that is directly feeding into how this show gets made. We also want to encourage everyone to check out...
Plus, sorry to interrupt, Liz, but you can also, if you put that $1 in, you can hear Liz, Eric, and I talk about movies and talk about like how the show is actually made and like what work we put into this thing to keep it going. Because we put our weekly meetings up on Patreon for all our Patreon patrons to listen to. So that's just one of the bonus features, bonus content you get when you become a Patreon patron. So don't forget, there's some spoils for you with your $1.
Also, don't forget to check out jambox.io, a new royalty-free music and SFX company with an emphasis on high-quality cinematic cues. The composers have worked on soundtracks for Hollywood-level films, working with directors like Michael Bay, Martin Scorsese, global brands like DJI. We want you to check them out, jambox.io. And without any more further delay, here's our chat with Christopher Coppola.
Let's just start talking about Torch. You know, Christopher, it sounds like this is a good one to talk about. So,
well, it's really not. It's not by itself a good one to talk about, but I will talk about it.
Okay.
You know, after I did my last feature, which was a big budget, which was not supposed to be a big budget movie, it was around $9 million, and I don't like that. You know, it was union. I had a crew of 125 people. It was a little rubber monster movie with some TV stars like, you know, Bernie Kopell and Frank Gorshin of The Riddler and Wonder Woman, and not big name leads. And it should have maybe only cost, you know, maybe $2 or $3 million, which I know sounds like a lot, but it is a lot. But not compared to what everybody else is spending. You know, what's considered a low budget film, what's considered a no budget film in Hollywood is $5 million. Anything $5 million or under is a no budget film. Just so you know.
Upsetting.
Yeah, it is. But I prefer the guerrilla part. I'm more happy doing that. But anyhow, getting back to that movie, It was shot with the first major HD cameras, the Sony Cine-Altas with Panavision lenses. And we were sort of testing them out because I was known as the guy that said film is dead on several panels, HD Expo. And I had great seminars for me, and this was before things were really going digital. I said, Bert, film is dead. You're going to have to learn how to deal with this new technology. And are you still writing a script on a typewriter or on a computer? I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. I said, you're going to have to deal with this, so you better start learning and to bring your storytelling and your old school analog expertise to this new type of cinema, which is now everywhere. So I was right. Hardly anybody's doing any celluloid, and it's too expensive to make. And if you consider the fact that, any time a film was screened in a theater, you had to replace it after like a week because of scratches and people paid money. You don't have to do that with a high-end digital DCI, DCP, or whatever it is. I don't remember anymore. But anyhow, I did that movie, and it went up. It was probably bigger than Apocalypse Now in terms of how much over budget it went. And we went 4 months, literally 4 months, out in the desert, rubber monster movie, out in the desert, 120-degree heat. But I had a woman that sued me because I was using the term digiflix because I felt this was going to be the future. We're talking 2000. We're talking 22 years ago. And I said, this is going to be the future. Kids, people are going to get their little Canon XL1s. They're going to make these movies for $20,000 or less. You can make a movie for $2,500, You can't get actors. And if you're going to try to do something, you should probably get actors, depending on what type of film you're making. But I said, look, you do a slate of these, $20,000 or less, all genre, because genres, if you find the right audience, you could put it in there and maybe get some money back. I mean, people want to make a little money back from their hard work, and it's not easy, okay? It's very rare, very, very rare that you're going to make some money back. Maybe break even, but very rare. But the lower the budget, the better the chances. If you have actors, then it's possible, to make something. But you got to be an entrepreneur too. You have to be a business person and a producer and an artist director. You got to know these things before you even consider making a movie. If you're wanting to make some money back, if you get money from outside places, you tell them, look, the worst risk in the world is to greenlight a film. The chances of it making money is worse than Vegas odds. You do it because you love it, all right? And so you tell your investors, look, I'm telling you, every once in a while there's a breakthrough, like, Blair Witch or whatever, but the chances you're going to be hit by lightning before that happens. So you do it because you love it. And so you're taking the risk, and, you can write it off. You got plenty of money, and you'll make more money writing it off. So what difference does it make? And so, you got a point. And then you can bring your grandkid to the set. They get to shake hands. That's fun, right? Yeah, well, that'd be great. So you gotta realize all this stuff. First, you got to be willing to want to do it because you're passionate about it. You got to be willing to know that you're not going to make any money from it. That's difficult. It's a difficult pill to swallow, but not so bad for you guys because I'm talking tangents here. I'll get back to the Rubber Monster movie. When I started out, I was 25 when I made my first feature for Dino De Laurentiis right out of art school. In a way, I got Francis beat because I was 25 and he was in his 30s. But anyhow, the deal is I came out of an art school, experimental music, experimental cinema, and I wanted to do long form. And that's expensive. Okay, this is celluloid. I mean, I did a lot of short experimental films. Worked with Stan Brakhage and George Kuchar, who was my teacher, and a lot of great, experimentalists. But I wanted to make long form films, and just didn't have the money to do that. And at that point, my brother, the movie star, was just kicking off with Valley Girl. He came the next step up, even though he was in some of Francis's movies beforehand. And he said, you got to be just going to Hollywood. You can't do these. You got to make your long form films. And And at that point, I was sort of being tailored. Sophia was just a little girl, and I was like the Coppola, and I was actually coming out of film school. And so I was kind of being tailored, which I really didn't like that idea. But I said, I want to do this, Dino De Laurentiis. And I guess if it's a horror film, I could be kind of artistic about it. As long as it's scary, it was more funny than scary, which was somewhat intentional. I realized in the old days that you would make a movie from the 70s on, and we'll get into the little micro budgets later, but this is where I started. People would sell out. They would do whatever the producers told them to do, because if they didn't, they wouldn't get their next film, all right? And so the 70s was the last time that the directors had all the power, and you had so many great films out of the 70s, Francis's films, Scorsese, even Spielberg, with the one about the truck duel. But anyhow, this was the last time. So everybody after that realized that, man, if I don't do this and it doesn't sell, I'm going to be sitting on the fence. That was then. And then the digital thing started happening. So, this is a whole nother ballgame now. A young person can figure out the business, figure out what story, what to bring to the table, have a group of people that they work with. And you never know. There might be, but you're passionate about it. Like the freaking brilliant film about the time travel. It was $10,000. What was that called?
Oh, Primer.
Primer. What a terrific film. And I remember being at the Independent Spirit Awards, because I'm in the Directors Guild and I was part of the Independent Film Committee, which I don't know why other people were. I like Soderbergh, but, he makes big budget movies. This is Independent Film Committee, people. So I'm at the Spirit Awards, and Primer is up there, but so is Crouching Tiger. And Crouching Tiger wins. I go, how is that possible? It's a $50 million movie. It's still independent. That doesn't mean anything. Just because it's not Hollywood, it means that it's independent. I mean, this is a $10,000 movie. It's brilliant. That's what you're dealing with. Even in the independent world, you're dealing with that. So I started thinking, well, why not come up with a whole new idea called Digiflex that are not trying to look like film, but they're just using digital to tell these stories. I will do the first one, which was Bel Air, which was my Sunset Boulevard anti-comic Hollywood movie. I got some great people to be in it. Lee Rawls, the woman from Mission Impossible, Barbara Bain, the one that my brothers and I had a crush on in the first Mission Impossible. She's a terrific actress. And then a few others. But the idea was to let that grow and have young people come in and small crew. That one was 20,000, but we were starting to think, well, God, we can send these kids out and do one like Roger Corman, but films that had more. I love Roger Corman. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not a George Pichard, but films that had a little bit more something to say, maybe that might be both inspiring and in question marking. Not that I don't like, Attack of the Giant Leeches. I mean, that's a very healthy kind of filmmaking for me, and I draw from both Open City by, the great Italian nihilist Rossellini, and I also draw from Attack of the Giant Leeches, or Ed Wood. I love Ed Wood. All right, so I draw from both these. Sacred and profane is how I've been described as a filmmaker myself. But because I was using this term Digiflex, I started getting these emails like, cease and desist, or we will come after you. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I trademark it. The government gave me the trademark, Digiflex. And the government made a mistake. They let two people trademark it. And so I was getting sued. It just was I hate that. I kept saying it's a waste of everybody's time. People think maybe my family will defend me. No, they don't. I've had to go out and raise my own funds. Actually, it was harder to work for my family as a director than anybody else. That's a whole other story I could tell you, where I nearly died a couple times on a film I did for Francis. And if it wasn't for my brother Mark saying, he's got chicken pox and it's 20 below zero, what are you doing? Trying to kill him? And he goes, can you just let him? He goes, well, I'll get him a warm tent, and he can direct from the tent so that the show goes on. He goes, you're gonna kill him. You want to kill him? So yeah, it's tough. Okay, so let's forget that aspect of it. I mean, I've learned a lot for sure, and I respect everybody, but I do my own thing, and it's caused me all kinds of issues. But that's what I do. We all have our own cross to bear, so to speak. So anyway, I get these calls, and I only have $50,000 frivolous lawsuit through my little company, Plaster City, which I created in 95, and it just made 10 movies, and I raised the money for them and distributed. One made some money, some. And actually, when we paid some of the deferments that people couldn't believe it, post I said, "You're really paying me something?" I said, "I know it never happens, but yeah, here you go." So just so you know, when you get deferment or you say points, that means nothing. Okay, you're doing it because you want to do it, and you're doing it for the $100 a day. Okay, because you're with a team and you can go buy dinner. And you'd rather do that than work at McDonald's. I mean, that's kind of how you have to go into this. Hollywood, when they make $1 billion in film, they say they still didn't make any money and they don't pay their stuff. So you're dealing with that. We are telling the truth. I mean, we're like, yeah, we made a little money. So here, that's what you do, right? But that's different. So I had $50,000 worth of frivolous lawsuit money. I had a friend that was an attorney. And I said, okay, let's, they don't know that I don't have my family backing every move I do. They don't know. We don't tell them anything. So they might assume that and get scared. I found out that they have pockets so deep that they could write a check for $100 million and it would cash. That's not something my family could do. Okay. So I'm like, oh, shit. And why are they suing me? Because of Digiflix, because you trademark, and they said they had it. I said, well, what do? They own these coils of electronics. I said, are they really making movies? No. I looked at what they did. They were selling DVDs, but it was all bullcrap. And I said, but we're doing something. It's in the newspapers that I made a Digiflick. It's been talked about, my idea of film is dead, and now we're moving into this new electronic cinema that is a great equalizer, that gives more people an opportunity to work, to learn, to develop. You're only as good as you keep working. The more you do it, the better you are. I mean, in the old days, John Ford was one of the greatest directors. He made 300 short movies. It was part of the machine. Of course, you're going to get a little better each time. It's harder. But now you guys can do it every day. You can make a 1-minute movie on your cell phone, which is what I teach. Back to Digiflix. So I just said, I'm sick of this. I'm going to write a letter. I got this really nasty, vicious letter from this woman. And I wrote back and said, what? I'm just a little filmmaker. You might think I'm that, but look at my movies. Look at me. I'm not Francis. I'm me. Okay, here, I'm coming up with this idea. And I said, you can have it. You can say, I could care less. You can have Digiflix. I don't know what you're doing. I could care less. I'm just making movies. And so I get another letter from this woman and said, okay, look, you give us something on your dime that talks about digital evolution, because we're really into digital distribution of films, secure digital distribution of films. And we would like you to do something about revolution. And I said, on my dime. On my dime, even though you're wrong. And so everybody says, my lawyer says, screw them. And I'm like, no. I see an opportunity here. Let's give them something real good. And I told my team, look, there's no money, but there will be money if my head is in the right place, because I'm sensing a possibility. So we gave them something really good, and the woman was there. She looked like Maggie DeMond from the Marx Brothers, big woman, 65. And she happened to be a multi-billionaire from herself. And she looked at me smiling, and there was a connection she had with me. It's still kind of a disturbing thing, because I don't know why she looked at me this certain way, but we signed off on the contract and lawsuit over. And then 10 lawyers come up to me and go, Miss Roberts would like to take you to dinner if you're available tonight. I go, wow, really, after this? But I'm thinking, yeah, sure. Well, let's go to dinner. Okay. Next thing I know, I'm making a $10 million movie. I have, and which should not have been, I feel bad about it, but I know she could write it off. But it should have been $2 million. But because she kept going, and no matter what, the monster outfit had to be air conditioned. She'd walk around showing a picture of the $1 million monster, saying, this is my monster, and then a picture of me go, this is my baby. So it was really difficult to direct that. And I remember going, and this went on for about 15 years till she died, but we had a business company together. It was make a very interesting movie. And a lot of people said, man, I've never seen anything like this. I went to my second father, who was a black gambler, once a gangster, and he's my kid Bailey's godfather, but he passed away. I said, Ray, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't think this is a good idea because I think this could end up being very painful to me because this woman is weird. Did you want to make movies, right? Yeah, but this is weird. I think she might have the hots for me, and that's never going to happen. And I feel it's weird having her look over my shoulder as I'm trying to direct. And, and he goes, well, can I meet her? And I said, yeah, sure. So we had dinner, and he said, Christopher, I like her, smart businesswoman. And the chances of you meeting her in Vegas odds are 1 in 3 billion. So that means it had to happen for a reason. And I see she does a lot of charity, and you do a lot of charity. If anybody can handle this, you can. So I took that. I don't know if it was still a good decision, but I did. And after that experience, I said, no more. I'm going to do education. I'm going to help young people. And then I get another weird thing where I'm asked to be on an Alrik David, who was a billionaire Greek guy. His dad was a booze runner. But you can read about him. He's the guy that said, I'll pay anybody $1 million if they run naked in front of Obama. He's that guy. Friends with Charlie Sheen, Andy Dick. And I get this call saying, would you be willing to be on the Andy Dick show? I said, I don't think you have the right Christopher Coppola. I think you're looking for the Chris Coppola, the comic. We're different animals. We don't like each other. He's 350 pounds. He's good at what he does, but we're not the same person. He likes me. I don't like him. He's asked me if we do a film together. And I don't dislike him. I get it. But he makes more money being a Coppola than I do. So it's kind of annoying a little bit. Just a little. But I said to him, he said, can we do a film together? I go, no. And I said, if we did, we would have to do a wrestling match in Reno, you and I. And I would be known as the professor. What would you be known as? The student? Good. So we have a good starting point here. But no, we're never going to make a film together. Forget, that's gone. So anyhow, I get this call, and it's Italian. But I says, wait a minute. Whoa, you're that Christopher Coppola of the family? That guy, the pirate? The do your own thing, in your face guy? I go, yeah. And he's like, God, even better. Would you please be on the show? And I'm like, I don't think so. And this is, then my friends are like, Chris, you're circus, man. You Ed Wood. You love this kind of stuff. And you're good at it. You go. I'm like, okay. So I bought a motorcycle. We're there, and there's this guy that looks like Howard Stern with this young woman who's like 18, and I recognize the young woman. And a very pretty, attractive young lady who is from Georgia, overseas, the Republic of Georgia, kind of looks like Anne Hathaway. And her mother had sent her pictures out when she was 16 to every producer in Hollywood, including me, believe it or not, and asking if there's anything we can do. And she's kind of pimping her daughter. I wrote, she looks great. She's very photogenic. Just keep acting, theater. That's all I can say. It's a tough world, but, the more you do it, things can happen. Then I'm here at this thing, and I see this woman with Howard Stern type guy who's 60, and I'm like, whoa, I reckon. And it turns out that he's married to her, thinks she adores him. He's, no way. I mean, no freaking way. She's married for citizenship and the whole thing. And I go out to dinner with Alrik David and Andy Dick, and I said when he left, I said, that mother sent her pictures to, because, I know, I love her. And that's why I need to talk with you. I need to make a movie or she's going to leave me. I'm like, oh, no. I need to make a movie with her, Georgian actress, and with somebody like you, a Coppola. I don't know. And he's like, I'll do 7, and there'll be $1 million. I can raise money. I can sell a rock. I am a telemarketer, man. I can sell anything. I open up a shop. I go, telemarketer. I mean, I love this. This is me younger. Any way to make a freaking movie. I even took money from the mob, but that was okay. That was okay. I like the guy. Vinny, I'm on fire. Tiger, Vegas, Vidmar. I may be doing a film with him in the summer, but he's a character, so I can deal with anybody. He actually gave us $50,000 to finish a movie out of nowhere, and we made money. And I said, Vinny, here's your money. I don't want it. It's your money. I'm like, oh, so it's dirty money. I didn't say that. I go, well, all money's dirty, Vinny, so I have no problem. I'll put it into another project. But anyhow, so I'm kind of like that, but I'm tired. I said, okay, what do you need from me? So first of all, I want whatever you said at that talk really inspired me about film and art and music and your spirituality and all this stuff. And I consider you like a brother. And I'm like, really? Okay. Well, that's nice, Howard. No, Stephen. and I said, okay, let me think about it. And so I talked to some writing partners of mine. I said, okay, first of all, vampire film makes sense because she looks like a little vampire. Her accent is very Georgian. She doesn't sound American. So we'll make it a story that starts in Georgia, comes to San Francisco. We'll make it like a little bit of East of Eden, sad. And then opera. We'll make it an opera. Then I can get my head around this. And so I told him, I said, okay, I'll do it, but it's got to be mine through my company. You raise the money. So he raised the money, and he's getting 50% of every dollar he gets. So, I'm getting 50% just to make the movie. Okay, so I'm not making money. He is. And everybody said, Chris, this is stupid. I go, no. I'm tired of the dog and pony. I'm tired of having the woman, a billionaire, breathing over my neck. I'm tired of walking up the stairs talking to the chained. Well, I'm tired of having the gun in my face from the banditos. People have said, your making of movies is more interesting than your movies. And I'm like, well, thank you. I don't know how to take that, but thank you. So anyhow, this has led to me doing this, where I have now really more interested in working with young people. I'm very, very honest to my students, where I say, look, I've been doing this 35 freaking years. I made 13 feature films, top director for America's Most Wanted. Did several shows for Disney and Nickelodeon, and Disney hated me. I don't even know why. They don't know me. But I enjoyed doing those kid shows. I said, but I'll tell you this, and you have to really think hard about this, because you're going to get slapped if you don't really understand it. 95% of filmmaking is pure hell. You have to deal with that. You have to embrace it. You got to be comfortable in chaos. I don't sleep. Okay, I get 1 hour sleep a night when I'm working because my brain's working so hard. I drink 9 espressos a day. I chew on a cigar for the nicotine. I knock out myself with 3 shots of good scotch. And then I just get an hour, and then I go back to work. I said, and I can deal with any hellish scenario. The thing I hate the most is friendly fire. When somebody doesn't take the lens cap or charge the battery, who's part of my team. That's bad. That's very hard to deal with. It happens all the time. But something like a car breaking down or a generator not working, or that's part of life, horizontal rain. But I said it's pure hell. And a lot of people can handle that. Not a lot. 5% is pure gold. Pure gold. And that doesn't mean, the film made money and people are going, bravo. It just means that you love it, and just working with people. And then you just so happen to have a film that you made together that didn't exist before, right? You started from the zero, and now this thing exists on its own right. And so that's the goal. I've had a few students now that are doing quite well who've embraced that. Other students that are annoyed with me, but then thank me later. But anyway, you're going to ask me a question.
So after 13 feature films, like what's next? Like, are you trying to make another movie? Are you looking to make your next film? Or is it more like, if it comes your way, you'll do it if it's the right thing?
Well, that's a good question. No, I have 2 more films. I had 5 that I want to make before I'm dead, but I'm 60, so I'll be lucky if I get 2. I figure my dad died at 75, and but I had a great uncle that lived to 103, and he smoked cigars, but he's not sleep. I mean, I do too much. It's not good for my body in terms of my work ethic. But I have 2 movies I want to make. One actually may be financed by Francis because he likes it. I said to him, I have the money from the mob to do it. He goes, well, we don't need your money. I go, well, I all my life I've been raising my own money, including the film I did for you. I raised the money. You didn't. And you took a fee, He doesn't like hearing that, but it's true. The Western. I got Martin Sheen and Bobby Carradine and Johnny Rivers to write the song, Hoppy. Before that, he was sued when we were making it with just cowboys, and so he shelved it. And I finished everything I do, so I said, I want my film back. They said, nope. I go, I nearly died on that film. If you recall, Mark saved me. I want my film back because people worked on it. It needs to be finished. I finish everything I do. And he went, nope. And then 10 years later, one of my producing partners said, why is this thing? This is a sweet little movie. It's like an aw shucks 1930s Western, beautifully shot in Techniscope, the same cameras that Sergio Leone used, poor man's widescreen. He said, why? I go, because he shelved it, because he's being sued. So he said, can we get it back? And he said, he won't give it to me. And then I said, but wait a minute. His president, he's going to fire his president, and the president can sign off on it. And maybe if we go talk with the president, I'm not going to give a name, you might get it back. So I go in with the contract for my company, Plaster City, and Zoetrope, who the president could sign for. I said, look, I actually have some money to get Martin Sheen and to redo the film and get it out there. All these cowboys, there's a dream for them to be in a Western. Come on, just sign up. Because, Francis is going to hate me and be so pissed. I said, you're fired. You know that. You're fired tomorrow. What's the point? He goes, oh, fuck it. And he signed it. So I got it back. And then I started getting calls from the same people that sued Francis. And they said, what makes you, we scared Francis. What makes you think you can get away with this? Now, I have money from the mob, okay? And I'm like, well, you don't know me. Well, maybe you should just look at the movie and see how small it is and just kind of go our separate ways. And he said, okay, we'll look at it. So I had 4 friends of mine who you wouldn't want to mess with, ride motorcycles up to their stupid little production company in Burbank. 2 old guys, real fucks, real not nice people, but protective of their William Boyd, which I get. But I said, okay, guys, just go in there, show the DVD, never leave the room, never say a word. And they did that, and they were scared, and I never heard from them again. And I finished the movie. You got to do stuff like that. I have 2 movies to make. So one, Francis is interested in, but I got it. We're already at it. We're already at a different creative impasse, and he's Francis Ford freaking Coppola. He's a god. He's one of the most important filmmakers of all time, and I'm just me. Ed Wood meets Wells. And me, okay? And he's wrong. He's wrong about this story. So anyhow, I don't know. I want to make it. It's based on something that's important to me because my friend Nat Kelly Cole was Nat King Cole's son. We went to school together. He was a poet. I was a musician. He died of AIDS. I want to do this. It's about his father and about a very strange white guy that lived under the Hollywood sign in the 1940s. He was a beatnik and a hippie before there were beatniks and hippies, and he wrote the song Nature Boy, which became Nat King Cole's big success and made him stomachable for white people all around the world. And this was a white guy who was weird. And it's a story I really want to tell. Tom Waits met him. He talked to Brian Wilson. And I added some fiction to it because there's always 2 truths. And the most interesting films for me mix fiction and nonfiction when you're doing a biopic. Our disagreement is about the fiction because it's about the video game business and how hostile that is in terms of how caustic that is in terms of violence. And in my treatment, it really says that. It really kind of, it judges. And he loved that. But as I'm writing the script, I'm like, I work with young people. They play these games. There's nothing wrong with them. And if you're a woman, a young woman who is considered the greatest violent video game designer, why would she suddenly feel guilty? I would think she'd feel a little proud of her artistry, and it doesn't work we can't judge because you have to. Who am I to judge anybody? Well, then you have to inspire. Well, who am I? You're 82. That's what you want. But I deal with young people. And I said, and they're going to laugh at me if we do that same old, hey, you can make video games that make us good killers, but can you make us good human beings? I mean, it's, I'm going to get laughed at. So anyhow, I try to turn it into a wager. I wrote 3 scripts. He's not happy. I'm not happy. I said, okay, look, I'll give you a 4th draft. We'll see what happens. I like my first draft. It was very intense. It was a wager between a filmmaker and a video game designer. Then they become lovers at the end. And, it was very interesting. Very, very kind of cyber Eden, cyber paradise found. He didn't like it. And so that's a film I'm going to make, regardless, one way or another. And I told him I had the money, and he said, we don't need your money. So that means he has the money to do it. If I want his money, I'm going to have to do it his way. But I just call Vinny. Vinny, come on, Vinny's, Eden, come on, nature boy, So anyway, that's one. And then I want to do a remake, and I'm not going to say the film, but of one of my heroes, a film, a very rare film of his. So, and then there's other ones, but I'm not going to get there. But I do get calls, like from Vinny, saying, I really want you to make 6 movies about me. Him. I'm like, Vinny, I love you, man. I don't. And he goes, well, do you like those movies with Dean Martin, where he's the 1960s? He's like the spy. I go, don't. Please don't say that. Yeah. You go, yeah, I do like those movies. You like that? I go, yeah, okay. Let me read what you got. So I wrote a script, and maybe I'll make that this summer. We'll see. I also am weird that people know how to hook me. Like I just did this thing at Fellow because a guy, a Spaniard, who's an actor who visits San Francisco and used to be a pretty intense, not nice drunk. I'm a nice drunk. And we would have interesting battles, but it was interesting because he was very smart. We yell about filmmakers and great literature. But he's not drinking anymore, which is good. I'm not drinking as much, which is good. I might still need my martini now and then. But he comes up to me and goes, Cervantes. I go, what? Cervantes. Don Quixote. I mean, Byron, what? Film. Shooting in the actual locations. Byron, don't. I got $25,000. $25,000. Cervantes. And so, okay, all right. And so I made it a class. He was bullshitting me because he didn't have the money. And then COVID hit. So I had to make a movie anyway because it was part of my class. So that's where Sammy and Quinn comes from during COVID, which is based on Don Quixote. And in my class syllabus said you get to watch a professional director make a guerrilla film as well as contributing. So I didn't have, and so I had my 2 sons living with me, which was tough. And I said, look, guys, you can act, I can direct, let's just go make this. And that's where that film comes from. But it wouldn't be because it wouldn't be without him saying, Cervantes. So recently he came up to me and said, Othello. I'm like, no, I got $5,000. No, you got students. Othello. So that's what I've been doing. I have 1-2 more days to shoot when he comes back from Spain. And then he says, Christopher, 6 of these, 6 $5,000 movies. I go, that's stupid. It's like, no, Shakespeare doesn't sell. He goes, well, who cares? I go, yeah, I get that. I said, but it would only interest me, and don't get mad, Alrik, if I had 6 women direct. Because I have 6 women students. Most of my students are women. I said, you know how big that would be? That I'm giving a shot to women directors that don't really get a shot, which is such a male-oriented business. And I also don't want to direct them. I'm tired. But they do. And I'm like, so that's good publicity. So I'm always thinking, because they'll come to me, and I'm on lots of podcasts, and go, yeah, well, I just hire 6 women to make 6 movies based on great literature. And so I said, the first one's King Lear, and it's all going to be done with homeless people living in cars in Berkeley. And he's like, oh, Christopher, please, you got to direct. No. I'm going to be in Vegas working with Vinny, going Dean Martin, and my students will do this. Not all, they won't all be students. I have plenty of successful young women that my students have gone on to do some one won an Emmy, a local Emmy for doing a documentary in Tucson. I'm very, very proud of them. My male students aren't so happy, but they're very few, and frankly, 1 or 2 of them is really talented. So I got to, but it's just good publicity, don't you think, Liz? Isn't that a smart move?
Yeah, also they're probably fantastic, just like you said. So one for one, right? It's when you win.
No, you're right. I would not use them if they weren't fantastic. No, they are fantastic. So if I have one guy that's fantastic and one woman that's fantastic, I'm going to go with the woman. Okay, that's just because it's an interesting marketing tool. You got to think that way.
We have time for one more question, and I get it.
All right.
And I read in another interview you talked about, you called yourself process-oriented, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about what you meant by that.
That's a great question, and thank you for ending on that.
Sure.
I'm not goal-oriented. I believe if I give you 1 penny, to make a 1-minute movie with your cell phone, you go at it with the same intensity, with your process, the same respect, than if I gave you $100 million. There's no difference. So it's the process that I respect. It's like what I bring to the table. I'm not thinking about how this is going to get me that. Now, I talk about the good publicity, but that's not the same thing. That's about, making the process available and also keeping it going. But the idea that I teach my students is, I'm going to give you this 1-minute project. You've got to think it, and then you shoot it, and you share it. We'll discuss the what-ifs, the missed opportunities, the what-ifs, and the clarity of vision. So I teach that. I say, look, here's a theme, isolation, okay? I want you guys to go out and do a 1-minute movie in your film, in your camera or cell phone camera, no pausing, no editing, all in camera, a long take, which is one of the major building blocks of cinema, going back to Orson Welles and I Am Cuba. I said, but think about it. Think about isolation. And then go out and shoot it, and then we'll share it. And you'll set the stage. So process means the clarity. What do you think? The what-ifs is changing the angle and the missed opportunities. For example, a student went out early in the morning, Fisherman's Wharf, homeless people, and the camera is doing a 360, and way in the back, you can see a dog. And the dog is going to run to knock over a trash can, but the camera just kept moving. And I said, that was a missed opportunity. And you need to be completely aware in your environment. That's part of the process. Aware, not thinking this, thinking that, but aware. Because I would have known that dog was going to do that. I would have seen it before I shot it. I would have waited. And then gone. And as the dog is running to the trash can, pan off the dog and then reveal the homeless people. That kind of says it all, I said, so you missed that. And no criticism. I'm just teaching you that you need to be aware. That's the process. And then the what-ifs are like, okay, what if you shot at low angle, like the weight of the world is bringing everybody here, we can feel the weight, or high angle, like judgment of the people that have, and judge the have-nots. There's all kinds of different things you can do. That doesn't mean it has to be that, but what if? How does that change things? So I guess that's what I mean about process, is being in tune with that, and you do it because you respect it. You're not doing it to get the 100 million, a stepping stone. You're not doing it for that. You're doing it because you respect it. And if you're process-oriented, my brother is extremely goal-oriented, and it works. It works for him, and has been, because he was angry, and he wanted to make more money than Francis, and he's very talented. And so he was goal. He wanted to get out of our world, the Southern Coppolas of Long Beach, our pain of not being the rich Coppolas, and he was angry. So that works. I'm not taking anything against it, but I was always more process, thinking whatever I was doing at the time was the most important thing. I wasn't doing it to get to that. So that's what I mean by process.
So we have a few minutes. I'm going to ask a couple more questions, or at least one more. What's the best filmmaking advice that you've ever received?
Wow. The best filmmaking advice I ever received. Well, George Kuchar, who was a very sweet man and great in his own right film director, he would take people off the street and put them in his movies and make them feel like Marilyn Monroe. But he wasn't making a point. He was just like that. People would feel like that around them. So that wasn't really advice, but watching. And the fact that he had that kind of love, and I saw what these people were like on film, and he wasn't trying to make a point. It was just, George, oh, you look beautiful. Oh, you look absolutely beautiful. Oh, we're going to shoot you now. We're going to shoot you. Oh, put the stocking over the lens. Oh, so glamorous, the stocking. Oh, paint it. Oh, glamour. And he was, so that was advice to me. It's like, love, you gotta, it's not just love what you do, but share the love, a little bit, because that makes people blossom. From a Hollywood standpoint, from Francis's point, but he's an artist, was always, do what you love. It should be personal. It should be something that comes from your heart, which is kind of obvious. Sorry. I think what I learned from Hollywood is hard work. And that's something you cannot take away from Hollywood. It's incredibly hard work. And I will say most producers, if they had a choice between someone that works very, very hard, doesn't complain, and has a modicum of talent, and somebody who won't lift a finger and has a lot of talent, they'll go with the person with the modicum of talent because it's hard work. Quick, I've learned from that. I've learned to really respect and appreciate the work ethic of filmmaking. And I don't like it when I don't see it. I usually fire people right off the bat. And to give you a quick example, I was a production assistant for Francis at Hollywood General, American Zoetrope, LA, when he was doing One from the Heart, and I was just a PA. I was getting $300 in a week. I had 2 cell phones. I was on call 24/7, which meant I had to go to the airport to pick up Nastasia Kinski or something, which would have been great. That didn't happen. I had a little crush on her back then. But I was working with this guy from Oklahoma. He was this big guy that he just needed a job. Okay, he could have been working at Beacons. He didn't get it, but he worked his butt off. And I worked with him. I was the young guy. We were lifting, desks to other offices when people would come in with their movie, and we worked hard. Then there were all these little student filmmakers from USC, UCLA, in the coffee room, drinking espresso, making fun of Oklahoma. Never made fun of me because I'm family, but made fun of him. And they were talking about their next picture. Oh, it's going to be a puppet, a puppet mystery, dangling puppet. Oh, beautiful. And so they're talking about that, but making fun of Oklahoma the whole time. I even had to feed my cousins during that. I was a waiter with a bow tie. And I remember one of them went, hey, waiter, another plate. And I went, and I'm like, got to do my job, So I come over, take his dirty plate and put another plate there. And I go, hey, Gio, after this, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. And he went, oh. So anyhow, that's, you work those things out. We all have our own. I get my first feature at age 25 in North Carolina, doing Dracula's Widow for Dino De Laurentiis. I got Fellini's camera operator, Beppe, which was wow. And I'm looking for a production designer. And so I'm interviewing people. Yeah, it's a $2.5 million budget, and, that's still a budget. And this guy comes in, and he's somewhat familiar. And he sits down, and he opens up I ask him to show me his portfolio. And it's good. It's really good. But I'm looking at his resume, and it says PA, Hollywood General. Same time I was there. And I'm like, he goes, and we worked together as production assistants at those times. I go, yeah, no, I noticed that. And you used to make fun of Oklahoma. Thanks for coming in. Thank you. So my point is, you work hard, and people remember. And if you don't, they'll remember. So that's my advice as a young filmmaker. And then, lastly, to think of it as an entrepreneur. I use this as an example, and maybe some of your listeners, this could be helpful. First of all, you have to find something you like. Like if you like Romeo and Juliet, you like the story, Shakespeare's. There's only 7, original stories, and they all come from Shakespeare. They're adapted. Somebody said something like that. And I know a great therapist, psychologist, that all he has behind him is all the works of Shakespeare. He says, that's all you need to know. Okay. So, but say you like Romeo and Juliet, and you want to make it, and you don't have any money. But you got to start thinking, like, okay, where is this kind of conflict in the world? And how old are you? Like, oh, well, I'm a skateboarder, okay, or I'm a surfer. I'm like, okay, research that. Go to Huntington Beach. You can read about it. You got Black Fly, the sunglasses. They hate each other. Surfers and skateboarders do not like each other in Huntington Beach. Perfect. And you got surfboard companies, you got skating companies, you got all kinds of things you can go to, stickers to raise money, and to also say, well, we'll advertise this and that. And yet you got the money to make this Romeo and Juliet with skateboarders and surfers, which are big, interesting. So it's just an example of like what I mean by being an entrepreneur. If you want to make something bigger, think about what it is you want to make, what's your heart, what's personal, and then start thinking in that bigger picture before you even start. So that's my advice to young filmmakers.
Thank you. And just to leave people with, how can they support you? Like, shout out social handles, shout out whatever you want them to rent first.
Whatever they want. I am happy. I actually started something because a lot of my people outside of school said I'm a good teacher for them too. And I started a kind of a tutoring coaching thing. It just started. I had 2 filmmakers, and they really got a lot out of it, where I charge by the hour. But I say it's not a teacher, it's a tutor, it's a coach. Like if you need someone and you're in the ring and you're about to go make your film, I'm there to like massage you down and say, well, think of that. Maybe you should try this. And so I'm doing that. If they're interested in that, they can go to ChristopherCoppola.com. It's still being designed, but I enjoy very much helping in that way. I get a lot out of it from young people and other directors. I learn a lot. It makes me a better director. So I can do that, and you can pretty much find me. People like to call me the pirate of the Coppola family, or I consider myself the carny pirate poet of the Coppola family in some ways. My dad was a great teacher, the older brother of Francis, and he was a phenomenal teacher. He was my teacher, my brother's teacher. He was never respected because he didn't win an Academy Award, which was not cool because he was phenomenal, a phenomenal man, phenomenal teacher. Still run into students of his say that he was the best they ever had. And Francis dedicates Rumblefish to him, to his older brother, his first and wisest teacher. So I really love teaching. I do it to honor him. But I think it's one of the most noble things that you could possibly be helping to help the spark of another person, the creative spark, and get them to believe that they can do it. And so anyway, I'm doing that. If any of your young filmmakers want some massage, and get their courage up, ready to do the box, okay? I'm good for that.
Alrik, what do you remember about our chat with Christopher Coppola?
Well, I remember that he sounded just like his brother.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, like in cadence and almost in tone too. It was so interesting, like how he kind of has very similar mannerisms to his brother. And we had some really nice emails with him leading up to this conversation. He sent some really nice, some videos and stuff for us to check out, and I thought I had an idea of how this conversation was going to go. But then when it started, it was completely not what I was expecting at all. I mean, if you listen to this, we didn't ask a question for at least 30 minutes. Like, he just talked. He just went. And it was unbelievable. Yeah, I always, whenever anyone mentions the mob, I always feel like, oh yeah, the mob's probably still around. I thought they were gone, but I guess they're probably still around. That's interesting. Anyways, what did you take away from this?
I think you and I had the same reaction to Christopher. I think he is a powerhouse. He took the conversation by storm. And what we always keep saying when we relay the conversation with Christopher to other people is we say, it felt like it had no direction at the beginning, but then all threads of the stories he told came together in like this beautiful tapestry. I don't even know. It's like there was this moment where everything coalesced and you're like, oh, this all makes sense. And it isn't just a favorite word of the day, tangents. These aren't just tangents, but these are all interwoven into a larger story. So I was really impressed by him. And I also, just enjoyed hearing the dulcet tones of a Coppola voice. It was beautiful. And I like how much he cares about supporting young emerging artists. So thank you, Christopher, for doing the good work.
Yeah, totally. It's also interesting to hear, like you think you're like, oh my God, being part of the Coppola family, like how amazing would that be? How wonderful. And then like hearing him say, what did the phrase he used? He was like, yeah, if I don't win an Oscar, no one cares in my family. Like that's like the barometer that they're at, And so it's like, oh wow, I could imagine that kind of pressure or that kind of reality of the situation would be tough to work on, especially if you're a genre filmmaker just making fun, crazy genre movies. Like, I'd be like, oh wait, so none of this matters? Okay. But yeah, we also have a really interesting article this week. This one is from Deadline, written by Anthony de Alessandro. It's about James Gray, who's a director of a film called Armageddon Time, which I've never heard of. He made some statements about the need for studios to be willing to lose money on an art house division, which used to happen. Like Sony Classics used to be a thing. I don't think Sony Classics is around anymore. But he thinks if we don't go back to this, we're going to risk losing future Godfathers and future quotable classics that we have now. But in today's marketplace, we're not providing the necessary funds for those movies to exist. Like, we're just putting movies in franchises. We're just putting movies into superhero movies. We're just putting money into franchises. We're just putting money into superhero films. And we're not really focusing on these other movies that could be the next wave of classics. And right now, nothing is quotable is being created, you know, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with 100%, but I see his perspective. Is there anything I'm missing here about this article? Any details that, you know, I'm glazing over in my description?
Well, he talks a little bit about the importance of theatrical support of these titles, because his argument is that if you have at least a window of theatrical before a film is released digitally, that seems to mean more viewership and more dollars. But I would say, well, of course it does. I mean, it means more advertising. It means, you know, you get placed in certain buckets in VOD platforms that say day and date, or that say box office favorites, or whatever it is. Like, you actually get like corporate favoritism that comes from doing a theatrical release. So I think that's kind of a moot point. But I do agree that, of course, we should be spending money on movies that aren't tentpole films. This is an argument that people have been making forever. There was this great article that came out a few years ago that comes up every now on this show about the mid-tier or middle-class film, you know, like the late 90s David Lynch, Jonathan Demme, you know, whatever movies that have disappeared from the marketplace. Really wish that studios would invest more in those. And I agree that art should be a public good. We should be encouraging and supporting cultural enrichment. But I also understand that if I were a distributor, I would just distribute the things that make the most amount of money, because content is being devalued and people are no longer paying for content. And so sorry, I know people hate when movies are being called content. Art is being devalued and people are no longer valuing it properly. So I get it. I get it both ways. I think most filmmakers would agree with someone like James Gray saying that they want their films to be funded and they want their films to be supported if they're not tentpole creators.
Yeah, I don't really like this reference they used to Firestarter, though, because they were saying, oh, like Firestarter didn't have a theatrical run. It just was like released streaming, but it got terrible reviews. I read the review and I was like, oh, well, I would normally be like all over watching this. I might even like get a Peacock subscription just to watch it. But like, oh, it got a terrible review. I don't want to watch a Stephen King thing that's not good. So pass. You know?
Oh, it was a bad example.
I'm sure that's...
Yeah,
it was a very bad example. You got to like compare it to like something like, I don't know, like Don't Look Up. Mm-hmm. You know, like that was like a really great, you know, movie that was like, you know, straight to streaming. Although maybe it did have a weak theatrical for Netflix. I'm not sure, because they do that often with their movies. But anyways, my point is, I think that this is a little bit of malarkey, because streaming is very popular and people do watch movies on streaming like crazy, and streaming is very successful. And I mean, there's lots of metrics to prove that, you know. I'm not saying that theatrical is like bad or like we don't need theatrical or whatever, but I'm just saying that, like, you know, when it comes to especially indie filmmakers like us on our level, like the theatrical release is not profitable. Like, you don't make money, right, like, you know, by doing a theatrical release unless you're a bigger movie. So for us, like, why do we even want theatrical releases? Like, you know, I was asking my producer, and he was like, yeah, if they offer us a theatrical, we might want to turn it down just to, like, you know, capitalize more on the streaming market and actually make more money and not lose such a big percentage to the theater, you know, and that's assuming that you have a successful theatrical release, because a lot of times these movies come out, especially small ones like ours, and like no one goes to see them because no one knows who they are or what they are. We don't have a star in our movie, you know. So I don't know. I feel like what he's saying is like, again, for like the select few movies that are big enough and have stars and have some sort of backing by some production company or some small studio or whatever, and like, you know, those are the movies that like should be getting theatrical releases, like the movies starring the, you know, Zac Efrons of the world, you know, like those movies are the ones that maybe benefit from this thesis. But I think, you know, the majority of independent filmmakers like us, like, we're probably better off just sticking on streaming, you know.
What we do need, I agree, but what we do need is marketing support. It doesn't need to be theatrical support. It needs marketing support. I just think it's funny that he references The Godfather. Sean's watching that horrible, he likes it, but that horrible Paramount Plus TV show, The Offer.
Oh, is it really bad?
Well, I can't stand it, but now I'm going to get in trouble for saying that. But it's like they keep saying over and over again, The Godfather is the most popular book in America. And it's like, I think this argument, I mean, it's like The Godfather is based off of incredibly popular IP. I wouldn't differentiate it that much from a really great graphic novel, you know.
Yeah, like Hunger Games or something.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of substance. There's a lot of depth. It's a great story. I'm not saying it's vapid. I'm saying there's a lot of substance there, but it's still popular. It's not like you're bringing up this esoteric movie about Inland Empire where there's a musical sequence and David Lynch never sums up a thesis for the entire movie for all, 2 hours. Okay. So, but I think we can agree that.
Oh, that's a good point.
We want indie films to be supported. That's what I'm taking away from this. And I think that's what James Gray is trying to say, but just not as eloquently as we want him to.
Yeah, because everything that's they are still following the Godfather model of like making movies about books, like bestsellers and everything. That is always happening, has always happened, and will always happen, So that definitely, maybe that's not the best example. I'm trying to think of like what is a great example, like Easy Rider, Raging Bull. No, Easy Rider, that's the book, Easy Rider, Raging Bull, but Easy Rider is the movie. Maybe that's a good example. Like we're not really making Easy Rider type movies
just
these days.
Maverick filmmakers, making films with less plot, but still exploring subcultures and themes that are interesting.
I'd argue that people are making those movies. They're just not being seen by people.
Yeah, and they're not being marketed properly. 100%. 100%.
Interesting. All right, what do we got next, Liz? What's up here?
This week, we have a letter from longtime listener Andrew Bear, and we're going to share it with you. So Andrew writes, "Hey, Alrik, Liz, and the MMIH team. My name is Andrew, and I'm an independent producer in the Los Angeles area. I actually wrote to Timothy Plain 4 years ago in April 2018 when I was fundraising for my first feature asking to come onto the podcast. After 4 grueling years later, I'm proud to let you know I've completed my first micro-budget feature, Space Waves, releasing June 21st, 2022 on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, and YouTube Movies. Hooray! Just to say it again, the movie's called Space Waves. That's not Andrew, that's me, that's Liz. Back to Andrew. Thanks for being the podcast that inspired me to take that first leap of faith. You are all doing important work. I can send you the screener if you'd like. I'd love to come on your podcast as a guest and share what I've learned during the process. Here's a little bit about the film." I'm gonna save.
Yeah,
that.
Stop. Save it.
I don't need to say anymore.
I mean, I wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out just to be like, hey, here's the movie, Space Waves, blah, blah, blah. The trailer is on YouTube. So just type in Space Waves official trailer, Andrew Gabriel, and you'll find it right away. But yeah, what did you want to say about this, Liz?
Well, I just want to celebrate Andrew for getting his film off the ground. I think it's funny that April 2018 was when we were shooting Speed of Life. So right when he was starting his fundraising, we were on set. And I imagine he went through a lot, fundraising and then going through a pandemic, trying to get his first film off the ground. I think there's a story there, but I love that he stuck with it. So I wanted to congratulate him.
Yeah, I just thought it was really awesome that we had another listener who, listened years and years ago. Like before they made their feature, they went out, made their feature, and now it's done. It's getting out into the world. It's being released. And I just think that's so cool. And I love to hear these stories, And I mean, will we have Andrew on the show? I'm not sure. But, either way, I feel like just this is a really cool thing. And it just makes me really happy to see, that it's like, yeah, he stuck with it. He did it. He made it happen. It's like, it's just like you're saying earlier about your script. It's like, you power through it, like you get it done, like you make it happen. Cause like, I think when the going gets tough, like a lot of people just decide, oh, the movie's not good enough. It's not like I could come up with a better idea. And I think what the real truth is like you just got to the hard part of the writing process or the hard part of the development process. And it's like you got to break through that wall to get to actually getting the movie made, And so it's like, don't get scared when it gets hard. When it gets hard, that means that you've got something worth working on, Anyways, but thanks, Andrew, for writing in. As always, thanks everyone for listening. You can always send us a question, comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. And Earl Martin, we do have an email from you. We'll read next week on the show. So don't think that we didn't get it, because we did. We actually also responded to, I believe, too. Anyways, but if you really like the show, you can leave us a review on iTunes. You can also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MMIH Podcast, and YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast. Make sure to check out the International Screenwriters Association, the ISA. They are an organization designed to connect writers with filmmakers through a number of programs, including publishing your logline to a network of industry professionals, consultation courses, contests, and of course their top 25 writers lists featuring some of their best writers. So head over to www.networkisa.org to sign up for free today. Thanks to Christopher Coppola for coming on the show, and to friend of the show, Isaac Pringree, for making the connection. slight, offshoot. Isaac actually lives in Alameda, was walking around, and he stumbled upon Christopher Coppola's yard sale and bought some stuff from Christopher Coppola, including a Godfather soundtrack on vinyl, which was pretty amazing. And then struck up a conversation, became friends, and then he put us in touch. So thanks, Isaac, for doing that. And that story was amazing. Thanks to our editor, Jeff Reimermuth, for doing the editing, as always. And thanks to our producer, Eric Toms, for being totally awesome. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Note to Jeff, I'm so sorry. I waited a few minutes to start recording for my own audio, but I didn't say anything for 20 minutes, so I think we're okay.